The Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Techtown Detroit is a business incubator and accelerator, helping tech startups and local businesses launch and grow. Techtown supports businesses with co-working, office, meeting, and event space. They also connect entrepreneurs to resources and learning and networking events in Detroit. Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Hey everybody, welcome to the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I'm Craig Foley. Thank you very much for being with us today. Nancy Derringer from Deadline is here with me. You may notice Alan Langle not here this week. He is in Florida. As we like to say. I do believe he is in Boca.
He'd probably be back in, he's probably at DTW by now.
Well, there you go. Right. He's on his way back, but he is not here today. So I brought in a couple of guests. Joel Sklar is back once again.
Good morning.
And Steve Fishman, thank you for being back, sir. We appreciate it very much.
No problem.
And real quick, before we start, Michigan basketball, you're wearing this T-shirt. Of course, you were a member of the Wolverines basketball team. We were going to get to this later, but I want to talk about it now. You got a big reunion coming up.
We do. We have an annual reunion. John Beeline started it, and Joanne's continuing it. But this year is kind of special for us because it is 50 years since we graduated, and that kind of lets everybody know how old we all are. But everybody's coming back, and we're all looking forward to it.
Did you play?
No, Kazi's 4 years older than us. Okay. But Tomjanovich is back, and we're going to dinner tonight, and then we're going to have a little dinner and reception tomorrow night, and then a little brunch, and then the game on Sunday against Indiana, which should be a hell of a game.
Yeah, that will be a good game. We'll get into a little bit of that as we get on here later. But there is stuff, everybody, that we need to talk about today. Because as we said last week on this program, and I don't know if you guys got a chance to see it, but I called it, Trump Unchained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He has not shown any willingness to slow down or sort of rethink whether or not his actions are proper. We basically had a threat that he made to the state of New York via text yesterday, suggesting that they need to stop these investigations or they're not going to get that Homeland Security and that the airline passes. Anyway, it's a long story, but
the Nexus passes.
Also, he went after the Justice Department again, as he called it in a tweet, the Justice Department. He had quotations around the word justice to talk about the Roger Stone potential sentencing here. He has stuck himself squarely in the middle of this, has no bones about pressuring the Justice Department to do what he wants them to do, and basically destroying whatever impression people had that the Justice Department operates independently of the president's
and
orders.
serves the people of the United States rather than the president of the United States.
Exactly.
It's utterly contemptible, but we're sitting here with two extremely smart lawyers, and I want to hear them
talk about it. At least Fishman.
Well, no, but seriously, I mean, we've got a situation where 4 prosecutors resigned from the case. One of them actually just resigned entirely and just said, I'm out. We have not seen that before because of the interference that came from the top in the Justice Department. Joel, I guess I'll start with you. Is that something you'd walk over?
Oh, absolutely. I think first of all, I commend what the prosecutors did. It took a lot of courage, but somebody has to start drawing a line. The thing about this presidency is that there are no limitations, there are no boundaries. We're seeing that. For those career prosecutors to say enough, I'm not going to brook this, I'm going to leave, that to me is the greatest act of defiance and civil disobedience that you really can express in that manner. I'm very proud of them. I don't know them, but I'm very proud of them.
Well, and you've obviously worked with the U.S. Justice Department over the years. You've done a lot of federal cases. You have relationships with the people that work in these offices. How extraordinary was this move on your part?
Well, I think
from your mind,
the extraordinary thing is that they did it while the case is still pending. There are career prosecutors who leave the U.S. Attorney's Office when administrations change, when attorney generals change, when the rules that they want them to follow change. But that's not something that's in response to something like this. That's just, look, these people are going in a different direction. I have a chance to go work for Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, so I'll go over there instead. This is really unique. The only thing I can think of is the Saturday Night Massacre when they refused to fire Jaworski, and that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But to leave in the middle of a case, and the case is certainly never over until at least there's a sentencing, let alone any appeals that might follow, and to leave publicly and to file motions. I was discussing this with one of our federal judges a couple days ago. I mean, they actually filed motions letting the trial judge, letting Judge Jackson know that their getting off the case, essentially. And it's obvious what the reason is. You know, I didn't
Don't
read
you
the
have
pleadings.
to do that when you leave the case?
No,
Don't you
not
have-
necessarily. You could, there's other U.S. attorneys who are on the case. I mean, people
Okay.
don't have to
I
file a
see.
motion.
How
You
big
know,
is the team that's on this then?
I don't know, but I wouldn't be
Okay.
surprised. It would,
All right.
it could be 4, 5, 6 people. I don't know. I really don't know. But the fact that they did it when they did it in the manner that they did it really speaks to how extraordinary it is and how ridiculous it is what went on with the higher people in the Justice Department and obviously with Trump.
And we'll get into Bill Barr in just a second, but I want to talk a little bit more about how extreme Trump is being when it comes to this case in Roger Stone, because, of course, he's complaining about the sentencing recommendation for Roger Stone, his former campaign official who is basically convicted of lying to Congress,
And this is
among
under the
other
law,
things,
correct?
maybe threatening
Intimidation.
witnesses. And so he is, he's going to serve some time, we think, unless he gets pardoned by the president, which may happen after this case is adjudicated. You never know. But the president not only went after the prosecutors and the Justice Department, continuing his attacks on the Justice Department, he went after the judge in the case
Yeah.
and also the foreperson of the jury, suggesting
What?
that she is biased. Yeah, because she
Oh,
she
right.
finally
I
broke her
saw
silence
this.
the other day and
Right.
said, hey, we did a good job. We took all the facts into account. These guys proved the case.
But they found out she was a Democrat, right? Is that
Exactly.
it?
So
Yeah.
now that's proof of bias. So if there's somebody on a jury that doesn't agree with you politically, that gives you reason to suggest that this case is somehow rigged.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this woman said she didn't come forward because she's afraid people in red hats are going to threaten her.
It's a legitimate concern.
What can you say about that? I mean, this is going after the foreperson of the jury seems like an ultra low thing. Judges can handle it,
it's
but these are
25th
regular citizens.
25th Amendment time in any sane world. But of course, the toadies that are in the cabinet now are never going to do that. But that's what.
And it's Trump's worldview, right? If you're critical of him, you're unfair.
Right.
Honestly. And so I'm not surprised. He'll go after anybody because he's so egocentric and so insecure and really so scared.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. I mean, we haven't seen bottom yet. We're not going to see bottom for a long time, but that's the road that we're marching down.
So
Pessimistic enough or no? Have I gone? Okay.
Sorry, you're making me feel good about myself today, Joel.
I'm just telling you.
So
I
if we
that's where we
let's
are.
start with the first thing, criticizing the foreperson. The notion that anybody, particularly the president of the United States, but anybody would come forward and make statements like that it is so bizarre. I can't even put my arms around the whole idea of it. But more importantly, he's forgotten. Unfortunately, he's never had the misfortune of sitting as the defendant where he should have been many times over all these years. There's 12 people on this jury. I don't know who the woman is, but if anybody believes that one person, I don't care who you are, the most persuasive person on the planet, there is no way one person could control what the other 11 people do. It's impossible. I mean, I've had, 250 jury trials. There are 4 people. There are people who are more kind of followers, but there's never a time where you go, oh, if I can just keep so-and-so on, he or she is going to control the jury, and all other 11 people are going to. That's the first thing. The second thing is to say what he said today after Barr had his interview, or do we want to get to that when we're talking
we'll
about
get to that,
Barr?
but
Okay, it's what Joel said. It's a complete and total disregard for the function of the jury, the function of the judge, the function of the United States Attorney's Office, the function of the Justice Department. All of them are there, as far as he's concerned, to serve his
Correct.
interests. And, people voted for this, and if they do it again, they can't say they don't know.
And it's going to get worse. That's the terror of it all.
Are the Democrats going to have enough brains and testicular fortitude or ovarian fortitude to to capitalize on this? Because I want to hear this come up in the questioning of Republican candidates for Senate, for House, and just are you okay with this? If so, tell us why. And if you're not, then you better say so. But of course, they won't say so. Well, they're all cowards.
now here's the thing. Bill Barr, I had a bunch of people saying, oh, Bill Barr actually going out there and really sticking it to the president when he came out and gave that interview to ABC News and said that Trump's tweets make it impossible to do his job.
Right.
And everybody said that this is a rare rebuke of the president. And I'm thinking to myself, not really. Barr's pretty much done everything that the president wanted him to do. He has completely altered that position in ways that most people thought was unthinkable. And being the president's lapdog as opposed to the attorney for the United States citizenry seems to be something that he didn't mind doing, and now suggesting that the president's making it difficult for him.
So the lapdog is growling a little?
Well, growling a little, but I don't think that's the case. I mean, I'm looking at this going, he said in that interview that he was the one that was going to recommend the sentencing change for Roger Stone. But then when the president tweeted about it, it made it look like he was doing the president's bidding. But I'm like, well, wait a minute. If the president hadn't tweeted, you were pretty much doing his bidding anyway.
Right.
Because, I mean, it just looks, it's obvious that that's what's going on, as opposed to you making a principled decision on what's the right punishment for a guy like Roger Stone. Maybe people don't believe me on this theory, but it certainly seems as if he's just trying to cover his own rear end and make it look like he's got some sort of integrity when all he has shown thus far
Is lapdog
in this
attitude.
administration is that he doesn't.
Right, exactly.
He's the Roy Cohen that Trump wants and now has.
Well, he doesn't like that comparison, though, so he does this
Tough
interview.
luck.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't care. You know?
Painfully accurate.
It is.
I think that there's two ways to look at it. One way would be what you guys were saying at the beginning. Hey, the guy finally had enough, and he's trying to, he's going to say, you can't push me around. You can't do it. I'm not going to do what you tell me. But I think the more likely thing is that this guy's had a long career, both in private practice and also working for the government. And even though he's doing all the things that he's preached about, that speech he gave at Notre Dame Law School, if you looked at that, I mean, he believes in all the things he's doing. He believes in enormous, excessive presidential power. He's an absolute right-wing conservative. He thinks that the white Christians are under assault by all the rest of us. I mean, he really believes these things. But I think kind of what Craig is saying, I think that he wants to be respected by those at least who are his followers or at least aren't completely on the other side. In the interview, I watched the whole interview just because it was fascinating to me. I had it on the computer. He said, look, this is parlous times. Everything's divided, blah, blah, blah. But I think when Trump tweeted this time and when he kept going this time, Barr, I believe, he wants to maintain a patina of like he's really a regular attorney general. He's really not just a whore doing what Trump and them want him to do. And I think what he's really
You're being
trying
insulting
to say,
to whores, and that
I don't want
offends
to be
me.
nasty to the whores on John R. But I think that he really was trying to put on. I don't believe that they hooked it up ahead of time. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, but I don't believe that because it's impossible to do that with someone like Trump because he doesn't know what he's going to do from 1 minute to the next.
I agree.
He can't have a plan.
He's got a frenetic brain.
But I think that that Barr may very well have been trying to say, look, everybody, I'm not a whore. I'm really not. Look what I said here. My reputation is starting to be slandered in his view or be diminished in his view. And I think this was his attempt, at least, to try to say, look, I might be conservative, I might be a big Christian, but I can't be pushed around. I'm not just doing this guy's
Right.
bit. That's what I think.
A veneer of
going on.
independence.
That's what I
Right.
think.
Well, okay, so Donald Trump responds to Bill Barr's thing today, and this was interesting. He said, he quotes Bill Barr from the interview saying, the president has never asked me to do anything in a criminal case. He said, this doesn't mean that I do not have, as president, the legal right to do so. I do, but I have so far chosen not
Okay,
to,
so-
which
come
is,
on.
I mean,
It's brain
Mind-bending?
explodingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
Again?
But here's the thing about that. Just that sentence. He says he has the legal right, as the executive,
yes,
to interfere
yes.
with
The Justice
Department. And if you can find a lawyer, even Dershowitz would have to bend pretty far backwards to say that that's accurate. The president, the executive, has the right to interfere in what's going to go on in the judicial system, and that's insane.
No,
it's insane.
It's the autocracy that we find ourselves in.
Exactly.
This is the dissent.
Well, how much of this is Barr basically holding down a revolt within the Justice Department?
Oh, that's a good question. I never thought of that. That it's either this or he's going to have, dozens of
departures.
lawyers walking
You better
out.
do something.
Yeah.
Do something that shows that you actually give a damn about us and our independence here. Because these people are lifers. They take these jobs, they're not, automatically broomed out when the next administration comes in.
Right. They're
You know?
non-political positions. Right.
Again, and if you're doing a good job, there's usually carryover. You get to stick around, except with the exception of Trump, who pretty much broomed everybody when he got in. But it seems to me that he's probably got a big problem on his hands over there in terms of morale. And when you get these four leaving and just say we're off this case and one of them just resigning, I think there might be some other people that might walk.
But isn't this the intent of Trump to destroy the institutions that are supposed to impose limitations upon him. He's doing it to the State Department,
The FBI.
every place. And why not the DOJ, right? Why not these career prosecutors who are there to uphold the law, to fulfill their obligations? That's the last thing that Donald Trump wants.
Well, and what was interesting, the Washington Post wrote an article, too, that suggests that most of this anger towards the Justice Department and the FBI, and specifically Comey and others, is that nobody in the department has been willing to charge any of his political opponents.
I read that column, and I think it's 100% correct.
But when is that going to change?
When is Comey going to be charged? That's what
Correct.
he's raging about.
Right.
Apparently swearing and screaming so loud in a meeting that people were talking about it for days afterwards.
Or the refusal to charge McCabe so far.
Yeah.
All
Right.
of those. But when is
Or
that?
the lovers.
Yeah, the lovers.
Right.
Yeah.
When is that going to
Struck a
change?
page.
That's what's terrifying, because we will see how politicized the DOJ is when political enemies, quote unquote, of Trump do get charged. And my optimistic view flows. I think that's going to happen.
I disagree with you.
I hope
know
to God
too
you're
many.
right.
I know way too many career prosecutors in the Justice Department. They're going to do, unless you're going to find complete whores out there, they're going to do.
Which they can find.
It's not so simple. They're going to do what those four people do. If you tried to do that here in Detroit, if you tried to pressure them into charging some political enemy of somebody, and then somehow you're going to actually do it, they're going to leave, and they're going to go public.
But why not supplement? Replace those people with lackeys. Quite frankly, remember when Whitaker was the acting?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mongo.
Honestly, when
Yes,
Mongo was doing the job, you can find a Mongo.
Yeah.
Perhaps to do your bidding, and so far Trump has. McConnell has become
The Federalist Society probably has a list they're willing to offer.
But those are those are people that they're going to put up as judges. I'm just saying I'm a little more optimistic about it. I think that assistant United States attorneys, 95% are good, solid people, and they're not going to do it. And it's not that simple to replace thousands of people. We've got U.S. attorneys all over the country.
No,
with respect to Barr, what you said about Barr maybe doing it, trying to appease the minions, I don't think anybody's that stupid. I mean, he's going to have to do a whole hell of a lot more than just have one interview with one guy from ABC where he says a few things to make them feel like he really gives a shit about them.
Yeah.
Now, if he does a few things like basically the opposite of what this guy's trying to do, don't appoint Mr. Durham to go look into things, because after all the other guys, everybody else that's looked at this has said it's not worthy.
Right, it's
of
found
something.
nothing. Correct.
When he does that, then he may get the confidence back of his minions. But just talking on TV for a 5-minute and 38-second interview or whatever it was is not going to do it.
Well, this, I mean, is upset and frustrating as this is for us. I still don't think this is the thing that's going to be the deciding factor for a lot of people in the upcoming elections this year. I do think health care, those sort of so-called kitchen table issues, or McDonald's booth issues, as we call this table, are the things that people are going to vote on. Trump's budget came out, shows a lot about his priorities. And last I checked, it's a really bad idea to propose cuts in Medicare in an election year, which he's talking about.
Medicare, especially when your base is disproportionately old.
Exactly.
So,
but
these are
Medicare,
not young
Medicaid
people.
cuts, food stamp cuts.
Wasn't there Social Security cuts as well?
Social Security cuts. They're all on the table so that he can fund, among other things, his border wall and a couple other vanity projects.
Probably offer another round of tax cuts to his friends. So,
Well, we shall see. But the deficits look like they're going to continue on for another 20 years at the level that they are right now, if not worse.
Well, they're getting worse. But with the spell that he has cast, I don't see those issues changing the trajectory of him staying in power. I
disagree with you.
I hope everybody's right.
I mean,
I hope
2018,
everybody's
if
right.
it showed us anything, the question is whether the Democrats can do it. Are they going to be so torn up with their internecine fighting?
Well,
and if Sanders people are going to say, we talked about the last time I was on.
I'm staying
But that's
home
part of the
if my guy
calculus,
doesn't
right?
win.
Ralph Nader and Jill Stein. That's the ones who gave us those two presidencies.
Exactly.
Right?
But that's part of the calculus, and the DNC hasn't shown any ability to become cohesive.
It's
right?
still early in the year. I mean, come on. This is the season. It's primary
it's
season.
It's really to panic because I'm right in there right now.
I know
right,
you.
right in there.
you have more of that panic mode in
It's
general.
I do.
It's primary season, and we're fighting. That's what primary season is for. Remember what the Republicans were like at this point in 2016. They were at each other's throats.
And pointing and laughing at Trump. Who
Exactly.
won the
Pointing
day.
and laughing at Trump. There were, 12? 16?
I think there were 17 at one point.
Yeah,
in that thing,
16
including
candidates.
such luminaries as
And And we're starting to see the winnowing now.
Well, that's very well.
And the emergence of Bloomberg. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, I was
going to
talk about that because you've got the Bernie wing, which is clearly getting behind him. Elizabeth Warren's people seem to have abandoned her at this point. Early on, we'll see, and that's unfortunate in my eyes. But Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders seem to be doing well, but Mike Bloomberg, again, creeping in there.
Absolutely.
I'm interested to see what happens to him in Nevada. That's going to be a different sort of voting populace here. Are we learning anything about the Democratic field at this point, other than that there is still obviously a divide between the so-called progressive wing and the less progressive wing?
I think if you look at the numbers, Sanders has claimed, I think they've done a heck of a job, Sanders and his people, of making it seem like he's really doing something fantastic. There were fewer voters turned out in both Iowa and New Hampshire. This business about he'll get all the young people to show up, well,
Yeah.
so
Hasn't
far
happened.
not happening. I think if you look at what Pete got and what Amy Klobuchar got, and you add it up, and then you add up what Sanders and what Elizabeth Warren got, it still seems to me like there's more. You want to call them moderates? I think Pete's a pretty progressive person, quite frankly. I mean, he's not compared to those two, but the things he's talking about are the things that a lot of those of us who are Democrats or anywhere to the left agree on. I think that the media has a really, really huge influence in all this stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'll tell you, anybody that's listening, there's the December 2019 issue of The Atlantic has any number of articles about the state of our democracy. You shouldn't read it because you'll go and kill yourself.
Oh my God.
He'll stick your head in it.
Oh, yeah,
It's over.
Yeah, you shouldn't read it, but other people should read it. And one of the things that's in there is an article that talks about that we maybe have a little bit too much democracy in the Democratic Party, which allows, well, the Republicans too, which allows people like Trump and Bernie and this guy Steyer or all these other people to have access. That professionals have been removed from the equation entirely. And he didn't suggest going back to the smoke-filled room, but at least some kind of a method where just every random person can't stand up there and wind up in a debate. It's interesting is all I could say about it. It's interesting.
Is this the same issue of The Atlantic that has the story about the disinformation campaign that the Trump side is running on social media and so forth? McKay Coppins. He was just on another radio show. Am I allowed to say Fresh Air? I guess
Yes,
so.
yes, you can.
It was just on-
I'm a public radio fan. It's okay.
Okay, he was on Fresh Air a few
But you
days
have to
ago.
say fresh air.
Right, I love that.
Fresh Air. He was on Fresh Air a few days ago explaining this whole thing. If you don't want to wade through all 8,000 words of it, it's a little terrifying, and it's the Bannon strategy, which is flood the zone with crap, and at some point people will just throw up their hand to say, I don't know what's real anymore, and that's exactly what they're doing. And it's terrifying.
It's not in the same issue, but I've read that article, and it is terrifying.
Coppins,
And
yes.
if people have no common agreement as to what are
Truth
facts,
is, right.
Yes.
I mean, when we were
agree.
in second grade and you're learning arithmetic, if we don't accept the notion that 2 and 2 is 4, all of us would have got A's, right? What are you talking about, Teach? 2 plus 2 is 9. I heard it on the radio, or I read
how
it
I
on
feel.
Facebook.
Yeah.
No, I mean, in all seriousness, if you have no objective facts, and if you have people who are living in a bubble, either way, I mean, you could be living in a bubble with Bernie too, but more of it is going to be Fox News type bubble.
Is it too early to suggest that this exact same thing you're talking about is taking one Joe Biden pretty much out of the race at this point?
I think Joe Biden
took
is
him-
taking Joe
yeah,
Biden.
I think- yeah, I would
He's
say that.
Just
tired,
making sure everybody
addled.
is.
Because
I
quite
would agree.
frankly,
Yeah.
we've talked about this before. I'm going to be 71 years old in a couple of weeks, and I think I'm in pretty good shape in the gym every morning. I would no sooner think that I could run for president, live the life, I don't care how many private planes it is, waking up in different places, staying up all night, and, by the way, like Bernie, just having had a heart attack at age
Yeah.
78.
Yeah,
I mean,
know.
I think that Biden is exhibit A of what happens as you get older.
Right.
On the other hand, let's keep in mind,
So
this
is
is his
Trump.
third time he's never won a primary. And if you look at the issues that liberals, forget progressives, whatever those other words, care about, he's been on the wrong side of every single one of them.
No, I agree.
Supported the war.
I
I'm
agree.
for the crime bill. Lock everybody up. Make it harder to have habeas corpus. He's never been on the right side of
No,
anything.
and I think Biden took himself out of the race.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How about
And that's
too.
good.
How about Bloomberg? The stuff that they've been going after him with this week, the interview that he did back in 2013 about stop and frisk. A lot of people suggesting that
new
this is
one.
proof that he's a racist.
No, there's a new one, but
Yeah,
not just
yeah.
stop and frisk. There's one this morning that I saw in the Post, and I don't remember. It was a similar kind of issue having to do with race.
Yes.
Here's what I'll say about it. He's got $50 billion, so who are any of us to tell him what to do? But in this day and age, when you decide you're going to subject yourself to a public review of your life or your record, you better have been a eunuch for your
Yeah.
whole life.
Absolutely.
Or stuff's going to come out. And
Yeah, but then they
there's-
could go after you for that one too.
Did you
well,
hear-
they went after Pete, by the way, but not
That's
for
right.
not for eunuchism, but for
Yeah.
no. But the point I'm saying is that you have to think. It's even people who want to run for judge or run for anything nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got anything in your background, it's coming out.
Did
I
you
mean, when
hear-
Mitt Romney ran for president, they brought up a thing
dog.
at Cranbrook.
Oh,
At
that's
Cranbrook,
right.
they gave a guy a swirly. Now I don't have much to do with Mitt Romney, but is that going to be
Those high school
disqualified?
pranks come back to
you
haunt
gave
you.
a high school kid a swirly in a toilet, and therefore you're not qualified.
That's a
Did
good
you hear
point.
it? I did get a laugh this morning because apparently he's quoted as saying of some woman, "I'd hit that," or "I'd," and he he said, "I was merely saying that I would like to have a business relationship with her."
This was Bloomberg saying that.
This is Bloomberg saying.
Now,
that.
by the way, I just want you guys to know, and
Yeah.
Joel and I should know better than anyone because we're Jewish. We've been calling him Bloomberg all these years. Okay,
Bloomberg.
Listen to this.
Yeah.
I never watch television other than a ball game, and as you know, he's flooded the airwaves with ads. I'm watching a ball game. It's one of his ads, he and Obama about guns and blah blah blah, and then it comes on. This is Mike Bloomberg, and I approved this ad.
It
Now,
is not
this is
Blumberg. I
what
don't care what he
Feiger-
says. It's
is-
OO.
This is what
Feiger
Feiger
was talking
said
about the same
last
thing
week.
last
He
week.
said he says Bloomberg, but I was also listening to one of those ads, and I heard Bloomberg. This is one of those things
It's
where
a
our
New York
words-
accent
Yeah,
thing.
Jeffrey and I heard it right. He said Blumberg. Jeffrey's a half Jew, but we know when a Jewish guy is talking about his name. Blumberg.
Bloomberg.
So,
All right.
so all these years, how is it possible? One of the most famous people in the world, most well-known people in the world.
Nobody pronounces his company that way.
Yeah,
I know.
It's,
But, I mean,
it's
that to
Bloomberg
me
News.
was fascinating.
Double O's is
I think he's outflanking. I mean, it's a really interesting strategy to see him try to outflank the field, and I
Well, you know
find him
what?
appealing.
If I could find a way to win the presidency without having to spend a couple of months in Iowa and New Hampshire in the winter, I might employ that strategy as well.
You
And I
need to
think
get 50
You
billion.
can only eat so many corn dogs. I'm telling you. It's just, you know.
He totally messes with Trump's head. You
He
know,
really
I mean,
does.
he's richer
That's-
than Trump, obviously more successful than Trump. It just speaks to Trump's insecurities, and he knows how to play them.
Can we make him like the minister of propaganda for whoever the
He could be
the
an
nominee
animal
Well, he
is
says he's
doing?
going to keep doing this throughout the race, even
He
if he's
did.
the nominee or not. I'm like, good.
Good.
What was
Have the
that
money.
line he had the other day where somebody said, "Do you ever think about what it'd be like, going toe to toe with another billionaire?" And he said something like, "Well, who's the other
Yeah,
one?"
exactly.
A fair question.
That's the kind of thing that'll get under
No,
Trump's skin.
Mark Cuban had the best line 4 years ago when I asked him something about Trump being a billionaire, and Cuban said the only way he's a billionaire is if I loan him one.
Right.
All right, well, we gotta move on here because I do want to get to this. This is something that actually happened in Lansing yesterday, which sort of puzzled me a little bit. Now, the Michigan Senate, they don't usually turn down appointees of the governors. It doesn't happen very often. Last time was about a decade ago. Governor Granholm had a bunch of appointees shot down by the Republican-controlled Senate because they would have taken office after she left.
Right.
And they would have been appointed positions. They didn't think that was fair. That's what they said their rationale for doing it was. This is not like this. So Mike Shirkey basically said, I don't like one of your appointees for the Natural Resources Commission, which oversees hunting and fishing in the state. It was the former mayor of Grand Rapids, George Hartwell. The Republicans don't like him because he was pretty outspoken on gun control issues, and they don't think he
Which
should have
has
any-
nothing to
God
do with
forbid.
hunting.
I don't-
Nothing to do
put
with
it this
hunting.
way, even the most ardent gun control advocates out there are not saying that hunters should not be able to take their rifles into the woods. They're just
Exactly.
not. Nobody's doing that.
It has nothing to do with hunting.
But anyway, so they don't like Hartwell. They want her to remove it. She's like, no, you can
is
vote
the
him down if you
National
want to.
Resource-
So
yeah.
they voted down another person yesterday, and her name was
In spite.
it was
basically.
in spite, exactly. It was Amy Mitterling was her name, and she actually has a degree in the field that makes natural resources stuff, those kinds of decisions. She understands this, and the thing that Shirkey said yesterday, and this is something that he's sort of being shamed, said, well, there were real questions about whether or not she could understand the complexity of the job. I knew you'd like that one,
After all,
Nancy.
she's female, isn't she?
Yeah, well, and that's kind of it. And I'm like, Shirkey, come on, man. What are you thinking here? But, she has a master's degree in fisheries and wildlife management from Michigan State University. And she's also been dealing with hunting and science for a long time. She's the only scientist that would be appointed to the board of natural resources. And she gets rejected because she might not be able to understand the job.
I give I give Gretchen Whitmer credit for having the political stones to come back on that and accuse them of sexism in this case, because that is absolutely a sexist comment. I don't care what anybody says.
And I mean, but it's also, I mean, the pettiness that still exists. So if you're Whitmer,
right?
Are you going to hold out hope that these guys are going to work with you on anything? They have not worked with you on anything yet, with the exception of auto insurance reform, which they wanted.
Of course not. The same people who will say out of one side of their mouth, of course the president has the right to have people who are loyal to him working in the office. Of course he was right to fire Alexander Vindman. He has to have people that he knows he can depend on and aren't going to sell him out. They'll say that out of one side of their mouth. And out of the other side of their mouth, they'll say, sorry, we don't like this, or we don't like that person, so we're going to screw over this person. So.
Well, and here's the thing. The NRA is the one that got involved in this, saying that, Hartwell should be rejected. Here's what he said. This is what put him on their radar. I respect guns, but I don't think they belong in City Hall. That was about it.
What a shocking thing to say. Oh, my God.
It's probably not a bad thing to not have people with guns in government offices.
The guy in San Francisco years ago would agree with that.
Harvey Milk, absolutely.
Yeah, Harvey Milk, right.
And so that was it. And that was enough for the NRA to say, he's out. He can't be there. They wield their influence over the Michigan Republican Party, and now this happens.
I wonder if they have a metal detector in the
the Senate office building?
The Senate office building.
I wonder
In fact, they shouldn't even have guards. If they think people with guns are fine, there shouldn't even be any security. Just let them walk around wherever they want.
All right. So I just wanted to get that out there and make sure that people knew that actually took place. That's kind of petty BS we're dealing with in Lansing right now, and it's going to be an ugly couple of years, I have a feeling. Well, we'll see what happens this fall, though.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we just... Chucky O'Brien passed away.
Yeah, I read.
Jimmy Hoffa's
I yield
surrogate
the floor
son.
to you people who are obsessed with this story.
Well, no, it was interesting. Chucky O'Brien, of course, was the surrogate son of Jimmy Hoffa. He called him sort of his unadopted son. Very close, but at the same time, he was a suspect for a time, or at least a person of interest in the investigation into Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance. And the FBI and the Justice Department never cleared him. So he passed away. He was 86 years old.
Wow.
And his son or stepson
is
was,
Jack Goldsmith, who is a brilliant lawyer and is a contributor. I read a long article, I want to say in the Atlantic, that he wrote. That's the first time I knew that Chucky O'Brien was his stepfather.
Wow.
And he was quoted in the article, in the obituary article today. He's a fascinating person. Is
he the one who wrote in Hoffa's Shadow, I believe? I think it's in the office over there because L'Engle can't get enough of this story.
He may have. I don't remember, but I remember reading the article about, and I think it was in the Atlantic. Maybe it was an excerpt from that book. I don't know.
I heard him on Fresh Air as well, and he was saying that this was the reason he wrote that book is he wanted to get Chucky O'Brien cleared before he died. He said he was fading, he was on his way out, and he wanted to get him cleared. It never happened. Played by Jesse Plemons in The Irishman. If any of you need to go back to that.
Just so you know, though, when somebody says, well, the guy must have done it because they never were cleared by the Justice Department, I can tell you in my own experience, when I've represented, as you guys know, a lot of people that were in high-profile cases, and it's very rare that the Department of Justice is going to come out and make a statement that so-and-so is not a suspect, so-and-so is not a target. I've had it happen only twice. I won't tell you who, but in both of them, these were local people. They needed to do it because the media had killed the people. They were writing stuff all the time, going on the television, saying how they did this, they did that. And to their credit, the United States Attorney's Office, and this is a few years ago, in both instances sent a letter to me as the lawyer saying this is to notify you that so-and-so is not a target or a suspect based on what we know today. They're never going to say, you could go out tomorrow and stick up a gas station.
I thought it was policy not to comment, quite frankly.
It's very rare.
Say it again?
I thought it was policy not to.
They don't. And part of the
keep
reason,
you on your toes.
No, but
keep you on the straight and narrow.
Depending on what kind of case it is, like a Hoffa case, the investigation is still going on. It's still going
on.
It's still going on. You don't know if somebody's got a video, or something, and so you don't want to look like a fool.
You can't formally close anything.
So
like
nobody
that.
should take it as evidence that he must have done something just because they never made a statement that is clearing him. If they would have thought he didn't, if they thought they had a case on him, they'd have indicted him and they'd have brought the charges. I think it's safe to say, as his stepson says, nobody ever charged him. There really wasn't any evidence. There was a lot of talk because it was in my age group. I remember when it happened. But there really wasn't evidence that suggested that he was part of it. It was all this circumstantial, well, how else would he have been there? And he was blah, blah, blah. And then, so
All right, well, a couple quick things. Michigan State has a new football coach, a guy named Mel Tucker that they got out of Colorado. Bit shocking, but Tucker came in and said, I'm not carrying any of D'Antonio's holdovers. He's going to hire his own staff. So basically, things are going to be a little bit different at Michigan State. I think this hiring process was a little more difficult for them than they expected it to be, given what's been going on at the university the last couple of years.
Well, it doesn't help when you have people on the board there who shoot their mouth off to the press.
Well, this was Daniel Howe's column in the news the other day, which he said exactly the same thing. It's like, who do you answer to, the athletic director or the board of trustees with the football players?
It is astounding to me that this has gone on for so many years, and these guys still can't keep their traps shut. Fickle turned them down. Fine, he turned them down. Fickle probably shouldn't have said as much as he said. He should have said, look, I'm happy at Cincinnati, and that's it. But you got to be bigger than that. You don't sit there and get into a sewer into a peeing match with a guy like that, okay? I don't know anything about this guy, but everything that you're reading seems like he'll do a hell of a good job.
The people from Colorado are upset. That I took a look at some of the articles, and he had committed to staying there. And this happens all the time with college coaches. They commit. It doesn't mean very much typically, but he had committed to staying there, and then he's gone. Yeah. So the people in Colorado are not thrilled.
No, they are not. All right, let's focus for just a second. I want to get on your Wolverines. They seem like they've got their mojo back a little bit. They went through a rough patch, but Michigan's basketball, they're making a statement with a couple of key wins. Beating Michigan State the other day was a big one.
That was huge.
They got a couple of huge games coming up. That Rutgers one is going to be tough. So is Indiana.
This one Sunday will be tough. Indiana beat Iowa pretty easy, and they scored, I think, 89. But it's not any different than what I told you when you asked me when we were struggling. Why were we struggling? Isaiah Livers wasn't playing. He's your best shooter, your best defender, and probably your best rebounder. You take that guy out, and we're not that deep to begin with, makes a big difference. He's back. He seems like he's not 100%, as he said.
Yep.
And when he went up and dunked the one in the middle on the pass from David to Julius, I'm thinking, please, because he hurt himself both times dunking. So just lay it up.
Nobody does that anymore.
He's an artist.
Both of those dunks were pretty exciting dunks, but I want him to play. I don't. Just lay it up. Counts the same 2 points. It's easy for me to say who couldn't dunk, but
Well, and one last thing, because this is the time of year when we actually think that anything is possible. The Tigers have reported for spring training. These pitchers and catchers are there.
That's not possible.
They're not going to be good again. They're going to be tough, but I mean, do you still watch when they're really, really bad?
I don't personally.
Neither do I. I can't. It's like I don't watch the Wings anymore. Quite frankly, I used to watch them all. When they were winning, they were fun to watch. I just can't. I can't really watch the. It's been hard to watch the Pistons. I can't stand watching bad basketball.
Yes. Well, the Pistons and the Wings.
And
are
the same
both
with baseball.
Really, really
it's already
bad.
boring as it is. So it's going to be rough.
There you go. And Nancy, we know how you feel about all these things.
Sports ball.
Sports
it's all,
ball. There you go.
It's just
all right. Well, we do have to wrap up. Thanks to everybody for being here. Joel, we always appreciate seeing you. Joel Sklar is here. We appreciate Steve Fishman as well. And have fun this weekend at the anniversary.
Congratulations.
Say hi to Mr. Tom Janovich for us.
Rudy Tig.
We'll be eating dinner tonight.
Nancy Derringer, we appreciate you as always.
This is one of my favorite parts of the week. So,
and it is fun.
You
And
haven't
Michael
commented on me being in the bimbo chair.
Oh, well, you are looking quite fetching.
My co-bimbo.
Michael Lucido engineered our broadcast today. We appreciate it very much. Thanks to Techtown and Samaritas for sponsoring this program. I do appreciate that a whole lot. Don't forget, you can support Deadline Detroit with your $3 membership. Just go to deadlinedetroit.com. You'll see all the details right there. It's easy to do. And come back for all your news needs each and every day. We do a pretty good job over here making sure that you know what's happening in your community. And we cover the most important stuff. So that's a good deal.
We do what
so
we
check
can.
that out. We appreciate you being with us. Tell your friends, share it, all that good stuff. It makes a difference. And who wants to do the honorary Alan Langle today? Nancy, I'm going to leave it up to you.
Drive home safely.
Hey, the Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state.